Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Estate Right Now. We talk about real estate matters that matter to you. My name is Jay Izzo, and we are live here from Linda Craft Team Studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina, part of the Greater Research Triangle Park. Today's show, title insurance. What? What is? We see it. We don't really understand it. We don't know what it is. We need help. And so we need to do Title Insurance 101. So what did I do? I found one of the original founders of Partner Title, Ron Fredrick, who joins me today. And he is going to help us understand what it is, why do we have to have it, maybe a few stories of why it's important, and help us learn some other things. You're always free to ask questions as we're here live. Ron, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
So title insurance, North Carolina is a weird state. We've talked before because I think different states have different things about what title insurance, how it operates and forms. But from a basic 101 level, what is title insurance?
Well, it is a question that comes up, usually from like friends and family. They're always asking, like, so what do you do again? And I'm like, title insurance. They're like, what do you do? And so I always really, tell people, like, when you buy a home, as an example, like, how do you know the person you're buying the home from actually owns the home and actually has, the right to sell it to you, and they're like, oh, okay, well, my attorney, like, does all that. I'm like, exactly. Your attorney's searching title, they're looking at it, they're abstracting, they're seeing who does own the property, right, and then they're drafting all the documents to convey the property to you. And so it's it's an important component, of that process.
Okay, so let's talk about that. The attorney does a title search. When we purchase a home here in North Carolina, they do a title search, making sure that the title is quote unquote clear. Mm-hmm. So what does the title insurance do in addition to the attorney going, okay, we've cleared title, but what does then the title insurance portion actually do for after that or during that process?
So title insurance is insuring literally the attorney's opinion on title, because the attorney drafts their legal opinion saying, this is the snapshot of the property based on what I've searched. And the title insurance is ensuring what the attorney is actually abstracted and found and written their legal opinion on. And so it's there's owner's title insurance, which goes to the people that actually bought the property. Right. There's the lender's title insurance, that goes to the lender that insures, their lien priority and ensures their ownership also, because they own part of the house too. If something happens, and they have the home back, they want to have that insurance, right, that they own the property and they're in primary lien position on it as well. So
in North Carolina, I think title, as I understand it, because, talking to other realtors across the nation, title insurance evidently works a little bit differently, maybe operates differently than other places. How is it different in the state of North Carolina, maybe, than from other states that may do title insurance?
North Carolina, we're bifurcated. And so
that's a big word. You can't just say that word without explaining it. You can't go bifurcated.
So the process flowed North Carolina. Our real estate attorneys here do the complete closing process. Like they will close and disperse your transactions. They search title. They really do all the heavy lifting, for sure. And then the title insurance agencies here just write the title insurance. They issue what's called a commitment for title insurance, which basically commits to insure, if you're buying the property, based on a set of parameters. And but everything is in concert with the real estate attorney. So we're truly, no pun intended, we're truly a partner with our real estate attorneys here. And so we're just an extension of what they're doing in your closing.
How might that be different in, say, another state? Like I know, like New Jersey, New York does something called settlement or something like that. how is that might be different, or how might that experience be different for somebody who was for else other than North Carolina?
In other states, title insurance companies can do the entire process from beginning to end.
Okay.
So they're doing the closing and the title insurance. And in other states, it's interesting. In other states, a lot of title insurance companies are also owned by lawyers, and so it's like, even though we're bifurcated here, you still see many lawyers owning title insurance companies, in other markets, because, it's just healthy for the industry. I mean, attorneys are held to a higher standard. They're ethically bound. They've got a more educated eye, if you will, in that sense. And so it's interesting.
So the next question I'm pretty sure that the audience wants to know is, do I have to buy title insurance? Is that something I have to do? Is it something that's required of me? What's the general rule when it comes to purchasing title insurance, or not purchasing, or do I have that option?
Yeah, it's not a requirement to buy owner's title insurance. Like, you'll see that, consumers always given the choice. Like, hey, would you like to have title insurance? And it's challenging sometimes because a lot of people just don't know what it is. So how do you know if you want something if you don't really know what it is, how it applies? Really, is it a benefit to me or not? The lender absolutely requires it, because they a lot of lenders will sell their loans on the secondary market. I mean, you see it where you own a house and you closed with one bank, and then all of a sudden you get a notice in and you're like, oh, now there's another bank that's servicing my loan. And so in order for the lender to bundle their loans and sell them on the secondary market, they have to have title insurance. And that title insurance, ensures their lien position, ensures if something were to, happen, that they're covered. So
what would be a situation where you would be really grateful that you probably have come across these situations? What would be a situation where you went, boy, I'm sure glad I have title insurance? What might be a situation look like?
Title insurance is definitely meant for like big ticket items. It's a one-time cost for the entire time that you own that property. So it's strange. Sometimes there's outliers, strange scenarios that come up, and then there's sometimes that are more common. More common is having liens on title from previous owners that just don't get satisfied. It's like they don't get, as an example, home equity lines are a challenge because they get, you're selling a house to me, you have a first mortgage and a home equity line. And so both of those get paid off at closing. And then the title gets transferred to me. I own the house, I'm living in it now, but the lender may not have closed the home equity line. And if they don't close the home equity line, it's still open. And so you may not even know. You may go back out and be like, oh, I still have this home equity line. I'm going to tap into this. And you tap into it, crank it all the way up, and then decide that, for whatever reason, you don't pay it back. And so then all of a sudden, that lender still has your property as collateral. So then they're like, oh, well, if you're not going to pay this home equity line, then we're going to, go ahead and, attempt to, foreclose on the property.
Okay. So the homeowner's title insurance would cover that piece of that for them.
And so if you're in the property, you start getting foreclosure notices. You're like, I don't even have a loan with Bank of America. What is this about?
Right.
Then the title insurance would step in and defend you, as the insured. And so you submit a claim to your title insurance. Title insurance comes in. They represent you. You're their customer, and they defend you against that claim. And so in this case, if it's a valid claim, they're charged with paying off that home equity line, or negotiating to pay it down, or really just resolving the matter. And so it's if you didn't have it, then you would have to defend the fact that you're being foreclosed on, and then you're taking on that cost of legal defense.
And so it keeps you from having personally to pay that cost.
Yes,
is what it does. When it comes to, I think we should talk about the cost of this, because it's generally not a real costly thing, but it's a one-time. It's not like you get charged every year, right? This is a one-time thing that you pay for, and then you never pay for it again. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For the life of whatever the length of time you're in that home.
Yep, exactly. You one-time fee, you pay it at closing, and you're done. And that's why it's like, that's why I would always suggest having it, because you just don't know. Like you're searching title on the property, but if 3 owners back there was some strange thing that happened that comes forward,
right?
Then if it's not on record, then then the searching attorney can't find it,
Right.
and so there's, you could have a missing heir, from 2 properties back where someone passed away and their heirs sold the property.
Right.
And there was and they certified, they attested that there was only 2 heirs on the property,
Right.
but they didn't want to tell about a third heir that was overseas that was estranged, that they wanted to cut out. And then, 10 years later, that heir comes back and is like, what do you mean you sold mom and dad's house?
Right.
How did that even happen without me? And you're like, well, because they didn't really tell the truth when they sold the house.
Well, okay. So this didn't happen, but when my mom passed, I don't think she thought it clearly through, because there was, at the time she did this, there was only one great grandchild. And so she said, my sister and I, grandchildren and great grandchildren. Well, by the time my mom died, there was 14 of us.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
So then all the assets, the house included, had to be divided 14 ways. And I think what happens in those situations quite frequently, probably, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is, of course, we knew each other, we knew where everybody was at and that type of thing. But if you were in a situation where there were 14 possible heirs to the property,
mm-hmm.
and somebody wasn't there, then this is where title insurance could protect you in case one of those 14 were estranged from the family. The title insurance can come in and say, okay, we'll hold it here. We can cover that. That seems like might be a difficult thing for title insurances to do, or have to. Yeah. That's a bizarre situation, but I've got to imagine it happens at least once in a while.
There's totally a lot of meat to what you just said, for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of what ifs that are right within there, on how that took place. But the reality is, it usually happens when somebody, they commit, a fraudulent act in that, because they sign hey, there is only, in your case, hey, there is only 12 heirs. There is not 14. There's only 12. Right. Those other 2, whatever. They say they passed away. They don't even exist anymore.
Right.
And it's somebody actually, and they're signing off, all of them have to sign off and say that, things. And so that's where, that's where it could come in, later. It's it's just, odd things.
Well, why do you think some people, because to me, it's just obvious we should just purchase it and have it. It's a one-time purchase for the life of the time that you're living in a home. Why might someone not want to purchase title insurance? What are some of, do you ever get I don't want to purchase this title insurance because
you'll see it sometimes with, investors that are only holding the property for a few months or 6 months.
Oh.
Say they buy a piece of property and they're just going to fix it up and resell it. And they're like, well, I'm only owning it for 6 months that I'm here in this property.
Right.
And so they're like, hey, I've got the attorney's opinion that says I am good to go, for this. And then when I sell it to, fix up the house and resell it to my new people, well, then they can get title insurance, and then it'll cover them through everything, and so, that's actually not an entirely uncommon one. Unless that investor bought a really hairy property, and then they're like, no, I want title insurance because there is, this came out of an estate, there's a bunch of heirs. There's and if you have title insurance, then when they go to sell the property, it makes it a little bit easier, because then the attorney is searching from that last title insurance policy forward, versus having to go, if there's no insurance, they're having to still go back through that estate again and really just kind of, analyze what took place.
What are some things that people should know about title insurance that they probably don't know or think about when they're purchasing a home, that you run across where you have to say, well, I would like you to think about this in this way, maybe, when it comes to title insurance?
I think it's hard, because it's not your closing attorney's job to sell title insurance at the table,
right.
And it's so they're kind of hey, if you want it, great, it's this, they can go into some things and what it covers, but it's and same thing on the lender side, is what I see a lot is an example. A lender will, not require a survey. You bought a brand new
Right.
house. The lender's like, hey, we don't require a survey. So then it goes down to the homeowner, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I want a survey or title
Right.
insurance
Right.
because the lender's not requiring me to have title insurance for them, and they're not requiring me to have a survey. But yet the lender's getting title insurance, and the lender's not requiring a survey because they actually get what's called survey coverage in a title insurance policy. And so, whereas an owner does not get survey coverage. And so it's not really explained very well, for, why. It's just, you might be talking to your loan consultant, and they're like, oh, well, it's up to you. A survey's $500, $600, $700 or more, depending on how complicated the property is. And so, same thing with title insurance. I would say that would cause me to raise my hand if I would be like, oh, hey, wait, my lender is requiring it. I don't need to get it. Why is my lender getting it?
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Is there different levels of title insurance? Like, I know, like, I'm just thinking regular insurance, right? Like if I buy car insurance, I can get, different,
beef it up.
Is there different levels of title insurance that are available for?
There is. It is insurance. And so just like you said, exactly, for your car, like I've got, extended coverage if I need a rental car, or for your home, now you have to buy, wind coverage, hurricane coverage, and so, same with title insurance. You have your standard policy, and then you have what's called an enhanced title policy. And the enhanced title policy, on average, it's about $100 to $150 more than your base policy. But once again, it's a one-time cost. And so, but it affords a buffet of additional coverages that really are beneficial to a consumer. All traditional title insurance policies, cover up into the date and time, like when you acquired the property. And an enhanced policy has what they call post-policy coverages, as well, things that can happen like after you have acquired the property. And so an example is an enhanced policy increases in value 10% each year for the first 5 years that you own the property. So if you feel like your property is going to be worth more in 5 years than it is today, well, that seems reasonable.
Right.
And there's some additional coverages for matters of survey if you chose not to get a survey. And there's protections against unpermitted work, which is a benefit. And there's, protections against some fraudulent conveyances. And a lot of these have like large deductibles because you can imagine they're just meant for like really big ticket items, big things to happen.
Right.
It's not like your homeowner's policy where, you have hail damage on your roof and they're coming out to look at it, or your AC unit gets struck by lightning and you're like, all right, how do I, what do I need to do with this?
Right.
And we get those calls all the time. We get people that call and are trying to make a homeowner's insurance claim on their title policy.
Really?
And so, and they're like, oh, hey, I need, and I'm like, oh, we'll call your homeowner's insurance. And they're like, oh, I thought that was you. You're like, no, but thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really important delineation because I think this is where people can get confused, right? Because they hear the word home and they hear insurance, and we generally focus on the first thing we heard and the last thing we heard, and they miss the word title.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think it's probably, I'm imagining that actually may happen more frequently than I'm probably thinking or thought about, because I could hear people calling their home title insurance company going, hey, we just had a hurricane come through and it's ripped off a bunch of siding. I should call you. And you're going, no, that's not what we're covering here.
Oh, yes. We've gotten phone calls from like, automobile titles, as well.
Really?
If we would loan money on auto titles. I'm like, no, we don't do that kind of title work either. And some people leave off the T, and it's like becomes like tile work. It's like we've had requests, to come in and lay tile. I'm like, no, we don't do tile work either. But
so I know there's a lot of title insurance companies that exist. I know there's a ton of them, and are they all pretty much the same, or are there subtle differences between title insurance companies? What should people pay attention to there when it comes to title insurance? Or is it kind of like, it really comes down to the title insurance. I guess we could call them agents that service it, or is there a difference between companies that they should pay attention to, or?
It's to me it's a service industry, so our product is the same, where we all have products that we're issuing,
Right.
that are ALTA forms, which is the American Land Title Association forms that are approved.
Right.
So our policy, whether it's an enhanced policy or a standard policy, are the same. So I'm selling you the same product,
Mhm.
and the premiums are the same because we're a filed rate state, and so all the title premiums are equal no matter where you go on title insurance. I mean, there's some nuances within that, but just in general, we're on the same, the same playing field, if you will. But the service is really where it comes in. I always encourage people, we have realtor partners, obviously, and lending partners, but I'm like, hey, just like your attorney is a tool in your kit, that you go to, have a title partnership that is another resource that you can go to. It's like there's, when there's odd, title issues that do come up, like absolutely talk to your attorney about it,
Right.
and then if you have a title relationship, call your title person and be like, hey, what do you think? It's just it's always good to have resources.
So let's talk about when coverage actually starts and when it ends, because there's a question of, does it start as soon as I get the keys? Does it start when I sign the contract? Does it start when I have the moving trucks? When does title insurance generally start for the new homeowner?
So once you actually, the attorney will record the documents, they'll record your deed, your deed of trust, then they're allowed to actually disperse the file, which is, and hand you the keys. You'll have a lot of times at a closing, you'll see where the attorney's like, hey, we are on record. We are good. Here are the keys, knock yourself out. Go have a good time.
Okay.
And so, and the, title insurance covers, you, like if you get a standard title insurance is covering
Right.
from when you got the property, basically backwards. It's covering everything, behind it. It's ensuring that you now have ownership to that property. And it also reflects what other entities might have a right, to, whether it's like an easement right, maybe Duke Power has the right to come in and maintenance your power lines, or maybe, the city has a right to come in and maintenance your sewer, or your gas company could have the right to come in and maintenance any gas lines. And so they'll disclose those things because the attorney found those, in their search process. And so they'll see who has a right to come in and maybe, maintenance, different, things that have to do with your property.
Okay. When does it end? When I sell the house? Or, because I'm thinking there's probably people who are listening out there who are probably going, so do I keep this title insurance forever, or when does that end for me? How does that work?
Well, when you sell the property, really, to me, then I have the most recent title insurance policy, and then it's there. And so then you're so in essence, at that point, then now I'm the new owner of record, and now the title insurance policy is covering me. There's, if there was something wonky that happened on your title insurance policy, then there is some, things that could come into play, where they may utilize your title insurance carrier in concert with the current title insurance carrier, because there's multiple underwriters that underwrite these transactions.
Right.
So you'll see, First American and Fidelity and Stewart and Old Republic and Caddick and AmTrust and WFG and Aegis National. Like there's a lot of underwriters that they'll underwrite these. And so they're, so that's one reason why you'll see a lot of closing attorneys that will stick with the same underwriter. If they have your title policy that you provide, they may stick with the same underwriter for the next one, just to have a little more synergy, between policies.
Got it. Is there, you've been doing this how many years? 26 years, 25 years, 25, 26 years, right? Has there been one unusual story that you've run across that you went, boy, they were really glad that they had title insurance. Is there one story that you can share that you could share? No names, no areas, but is there because it might be helpful for the listener to go, okay, this isn't something that comes up often, but this is a story that did happen where the title insurance really helped out the homeowner.
There was actually there's a couple that come to mind. They in my younger title days, out more in like the western states, like super western, there was a gentleman I used to work with that he was telling me about a claim that he had out west where there was these large, massive fuel lines that they would pump like literally like jet fuel from from inland, from military bases like to the coast, and it's like, and somebody actually happened to build a home right on top, of one of these, lines. And it was like, and it was really very old. It was like from World War II. It was really very old line, but apparently it was still in use. And it was like, oh, I'm like, so you're, when they discovered it, because they were, they were trying to, install a pool or something out there, and they discovered, they're like, oh, what is this large cement, cylinder that we've come across? And you're like, oh, it's like, it's being used. And so they, anyway, luckily they didn't, dig further, into it. They stopped at that point. But he said we ended up buying the entire home. It was a full claim, at that point, because the home was really built on this jet fuel, line, and it was like, oh, well then, no one wants their, the house to be,
Right. Yeah. Because you could wake up one morning and step out your front door and literally look down and step out your front door. I mean,
yes. Yeah. It was, I was like, oh,
something out of Bugs Bunny, where the house is up, flying up in the air and you're looking down going, oh my.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, well, that was odd. And so he had shared that with me when I first got the title insurance. And I was like, okay. Because I had asked the same question. I'm like, when could like a full claim happen, like for the face value of your policy? And he's like, yeah, the underwriter, bought the, the entire home, at that point, because it wasn't disclosed. They didn't find that in the title search because it was hidden. It's like the military didn't want to know anybody to know that there were, where the lines were, that ran, because that could be, that's
I know your industry, as with our industry, the real estate industry, we're dealing with a lot of clever people today. What are some of the safeguards that like a title insurance takes against fraud or those type of things where people try to, usurp the title? You've heard these stories, I guess, where people have gone down to the county records and they shift the title over to themselves, something like that. How has the title insurance company, in general, the industry, safeguarded themselves against frauds of title fraud and that type of thing?
There's fraud is a big deal for sure, and fraudsters, especially with AI, have gotten so creative. I mean, we all get the emails now, and before we could detect them because they had broken English or the letters were off. It was like you could see that it was phishing, but now it's like they're very polite fraudsters, that are emailing you, and really, and especially, what I've seen come into play, and so that's where really having like very educated, learned like closing attorneys, because they're getting fraudulent requests for mortgage payoffs, all the time, that they have to really like see through for the consumer. It's really hard because they're having to send in their funds, to close. They're buying a house and you're putting down $100,000 down on your house, and you're trying to securely get that to your attorney's office. And they have vehicles in place, now where they can really, help deliver that securely. But fraudsters, bad actors, come in and they try to derail that. They try to email. They're trying to monitor usually they're monitoring the consumer's email. And when they try to insert themselves and they're like, oh, hey, instead of doing everything your attorney said to do, and even on all of their emails, they say, we will never change our wiring instructions. We will never do all these things. We will never ask you to do any of these things. the fraudster still inserts himself and is like, I am so sorry. We changed our process. Instead, send all your money to this,
Right. This account.
to these wire instructions.
So the lesson here is verify everything with the attorney to make sure that the email was sent or whatever was sent, to make sure that it's legit.
Exactly. Follow your attorney's protocol, because they have checks and balances in place, and it's like, but the attorneys live it every day. So I would lean on my closing attorney.
Okay.
Whereas a consumer is only buying a house every 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever the number is. So they're just not moving, money as much. I mean, my sister-in-law is closing on Friday, and she's sending her life savings to the attorney. And I unfortunately shared with her some stories. And so then I completely freaked her out. And she's like, she just froze. She just didn't know what to do.
Right.
But she's not very tech savvy,
Right.
And she doesn't use email very much either,
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, wow. Like, it's like you can see, like my mom almost bought an English bulldog, from Nigeria, and it was like, I'm like, Mom, you are not buying an English bulldog from Nigeria. Like, there is that is not a real, those are beautiful pictures of a pure white English bulldog. And you are not acquiring one. You're just sending somebody some money. And she's like, oh, but it sounds like this bulldog really needs a good home. I'm like, it's not a real bulldog. It's anyway, there's.
Yeah, so I mean, it exists. I think we have to acknowledge that it exists, and that these folks are become much more clever. AI has, for all the good things AI does, it's also enhanced the abilities of some of these clever characters and actors that are out there. And I think the word is, be cautious before we do anything here. Is there a question that I should have asked from a consumer's point of view about home title insurance that I didn't ask you, that you think would be important for people to know about home title insurance?
From a consumer standpoint, for sure, I would I would ask the question, I would like, if more consumers actually ask their attorney, like, hey, like, do you think I should get title insurance? And I think most people that are in the industry would be like, yes, because it's, it is important. It is something that can protect you, and if you're going to own the house for 15, 20 years, whatever the time frame is, it's like, gosh, it's not very expensive over the life, that you own the property.
Well, this has been fun. We've done our time. It's gone really, really fast. You've been great. I really do appreciate you coming in. I've been wanting to do that. I told you I've been wanting to do this show for years, and it is exactly what I hoped it would be. You've been so informative. You've been so great. I know that they probably aren't going to get a hold of you directly, but who should people contact? Can you give any contact information if people want to talk more to a title insurance person about title insurance? Is it ever too late to get title insurance? If I didn't get it, can I get it later? Is that possible?
Usually it's required to get it at the time of closing, in that sense, and so it's it becomes an underwriter request at that point. If we want someone that wants to get it after they close, depends on how long it's been, what's going on. We have to reach out to our underwriters and be like, hey, what would you require for us to issue title insurance policy after a transaction has taken place?
Because my fear is that there's people who may have declined title insurance after watching the show and are going to go, I probably should have got that. And so I'm sure that there's a process there, but they should still probably at least go through the process and try. I mean, right?
They could. It's you have to basically, there's a few things would have to take place in order for it to happen, but it's part of the, when you're acquiring property, buying it, or even refinancing, it's like that's, the transaction is taking place. That is the natural course of when title insurance would be issued.
So could you get title insurance on a refi?
Sure. Yep. It's not very common. A lender will get it, but you can request, title insurance, and it's like, it will cost you, at that point, a portion, of the premium. But like, say you bought the house 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you're refining today, you can request a new title insurance policy when you refinance. and they'll of course like charge you for it and such, but really the attorney's already searching title and updating it, through, through sometime recently, so it's and then also it can increase your coverage amount. Like when you bought the house 20 years ago, maybe it was $200,000, but maybe today it's $600,000.
Right.
You might want to, go ahead and increase coverage at that point.
Well, Heather Williams has been the contact that we've worked with mostly here throughout the years here at Linda Craft Team.
Oh yeah.
And we've loved her. She's been absolutely outstanding. She's been great. So do you have any place that you would like to send people if they want to get more information about title insurance? Maybe they're interested in purchasing a home and they go, oh, I haven't thought about it, but that's something really important to me. Where would you like me to send them?
The team at partnertitle.com goes to everybody on the team, and so then it can be, directed accordingly, and so everyone sees the messages that go there.
So team at partnertitle.com.
Yep.
Okay. Team at partnertitle.com. You know the rule, right? In radio is you got to say it 3 times. Team at partnertitle.com. This has been fun and it's been fabulous. Thank you so much. This has been so cool. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for driving in and doing all this with me. Stay with me. Folks, it's the show. You know what I say to you, a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you for doing that. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. If you're watching us there, wherever you're listening to the show via podcast, do us a favor, give us a 5-star review. And you know what? Tell your friends. And if you've ever got something that you would like for us to talk about, you can just email me at j@lindacraft.com. It's just jay@lindacraft.com. And if you've got something you'd be interested in, like to have us do on the show, we would love to do that. As I say to you all over the world, we thank you so much. We're very grateful for all that you do. And ciao, everybody. And that's it.